All right, welcome back, long form content junkies. Today we're going to be talking about how to structure a workout routine for yourself, starting super minimalistic and working our way up from there. So this is a video covering topics definitely that I probably more so cover on my Instagram, but it's the issue with questions like this is that there's not really one good specific answer, especially not that I can try and fit in like a minute long little Instagram reel for people. I can try and give them good ideas, tell them what's worked for me, but there really isn't a one size fits all, depending on just mostly what your goals are. Depending on the goal, if you wanted to subdivide into goals, you probably could think of like a pretty decent one size fits all program. But again, like everyone has a different goal. So for me, my goal is not necessarily to, step on the Mr. Olympia stage. My goal is not to be going to the NFL combine or anything like that. My goal is just to be healthy, to be strong, to be active, to have a good physique that I like, things like that. Some people, they, are trying to compete in bodybuilding, so they don't want just like a general, overall healthy, muscular, strong body, but they're really gonna focus in and hone on specific muscles. Some people don't wanna be necessarily too bulky because they wanna be quick and athletic if you're like an athlete. And so that's why you really just need to know the basics, the science of how everything works, and then you can build off from there. So to start off the discussion, I think the best way to get into it is what are the basic human movements? And so if you're kind of familiar with the gym, you'll probably be familiar with a push-pull legs split. It's a pretty common workout split. And it's pretty well structured, just because you're focusing on basic human movements. And so I personally would divide it into 6 different movements. The way I see it, there's a push exercise and a pull exercise for your vertical upper body, your horizontal upper body, and for your legs. And so if that doesn't make sense, for your vertical push, that would be a shoulder press. For your vertical pull, that would be a pull up. Whereas a horizontal push would be a chest press, and a horizontal pull would be a row. And then a push with your legs would be a squat, and a pull with your legs would be a deadlift. And so those are what we call compound exercises because they work your movement across multiple joints. So for example, when I'm doing shoulder press, I have 2 joints moving. It's my shoulder joint moves up as well as my elbow straightens out. Versus if I'm just doing like a lateral raise, it's just my shoulder moving. Or if I'm doing a tricep extension, it's just my elbow moving. And so those compound movements are really what we want to focus on. And so you should structure your exercise routine around compound movements, but you could structure your exercise routine as only compound movements if you wanted to. And you would still, again, you wouldn't necessarily be ready to step on a Mr. Olympia stage, but you would have overall healthy, stronger body. You'd have a decent physique. This is basically how I structure my workout routine. A little bit more inclusive of accessory movements, but if you wanted to just do a push and a pull and a leg day, then it would be more like a push upper body day, a pull upper body day, and then do your push and your pull for your legs on the same day. And that would be 3 days a week. That would be all you need. If you want to do a push, a pull, and legs, 3 days a week. There's only 2 exercises for each, so it could take 30, 40 minutes, maybe, probably less if you wanted to superset or things like that. What I personally would do actually is, again, how I kind of structure my workout routine is I actually have a vertical day, a horizontal day, and a leg day. And so that might be a little bit confusing, but basically you're just taking, instead of going across the push section for a day, I'm going the other way and I'm going the vertical section. And so for example, I would do my shoulder press because it's my vertical push, and I do my pull ups or my pull downs because it's my vertical pull. And so when I structure my workout routine like that, that also is one of the things that could, shorten the time that you're in the gym if you really want to, lots of people have bigger fish to fry than spending hours in the gym, is you can do your vertical push exercise, and then while you're resting between your sets, you could do your vertical pull exercise. And so you just go back and forth for your 3 or 4 sets or however many you want to do, and then you'd be done. You have worked all your muscle groups. Your pull would have worked your lats and your biceps, and your push would have worked your shoulders and your triceps, and you'd have it made. So that's how I would structure, like super minimalistically, if you wanted to be in and out of the gym super quick and just kind of cover your bases. You could either do push-pull legs or you could do vertical, horizontal, and legs. That's the way I do it. Now, for people who have slightly more elevated goals than that, or for people who, I mean, like myself, I enjoy being in the gym. And so I totally could get a good workout in just 30 minutes, but I don't mind being there for an hour, hour 15. It's just a hobby of mine. And so what I will do is I will take that format and I just kind of spice it up a little bit. So at the very start of my workout, I am doing that vertical, horizontal, and the leg. And I'm focusing on my compound movements. I'm going heavy because you're fresh at the start of your workout. And then what I do is I add accessory movements on top of that. So I'll use, for example, my vertical day. Like I said, I do my shoulder press and I superset in between that with my pull downs. And that's gonna be my 2 compound movements for the day. And then I also throw in tricep extensions and shrugs on that same workout. And then at the very end, I will work on my forearms. And so you don't need to work on your forearms. You don't need to isolate your triceps. You don't need to isolate your traps. Those are all things that are going to be worked throughout your other exercises. But if you'd like to develop them a little bit more, see a little bit more progress there, then that's something totally that you're welcome to do. So I would say step 2 is just adding the second set of exercises. Because again, the tricep extensions and the shrugs are opposing muscle groups. Like you can do tricep extensions as much as you want, and it's not gonna tire out your traps for your shrugs. So you can go straight back and forth for each other. And again, while you're resting on the one, you're doing the other, and it's not gonna mess up your progress on the other lift. You're not gonna be too fatigued to do well. And then, so that's level 2. And then if you want, I throw in my single accessory exercises. In this case, like I said, it was my forearms. That's not something you need to do. It's just something I like to do. And then, for example, on my horizontal day, I start with my compounds. I do my chest press and I do my rows. I superset them if I can, if the gym's not too busy. And they're not gonna hurt each other. They're not gonna hurt my progress or my ability to perform well on them. And so that's what I do. And then for my second group of exercises, I do bicep curls and I do dips. And that's just because I like dips. Everyone likes to do bicep curls, want bigger biceps. Just because of my gymnastics background, I enjoy doing dips and being strong at them. And then for my last finisher exercise, I do lateral raises. And so again, level 1 is just chest press and rows. Level 2 is if you add the biceps, and you probably actually should do it, add the biceps and the lateral raises, and then I just add in shrugs at the end, or dips. I add in dips at the end because it's something that I enjoy to do. On my leg day, the 2 basic movements again are squat and deadlift. And so that's how I start. I go heavy. And those 2 I don't superset because they do sort of have inclusive muscle groups. They're both gonna work the glutes heavily, whereas the squat is gonna be more quad focused and the deadlift is gonna be more hamstring focused. And so for them, I don't superset just because it would tire me out. They do kind of oppose each other. And for that, you would wanna do, if you wanna focus on getting your deadlift better, do that first. If you wanna focus on getting your squat better, do that first. And there you go. And then for my end of the exercise, I do my calves. You don't need to do your calves again, but especially if you have goals for athletics or just if you like training your calves, great idea, good to do it. And then I finish off and I do ab exercises on my leg day. And that's a pretty basic structure. I'm only working out 3 days a week and I'm only in the gym for like an hour. Maybe if the gym's more busy, I'm there for an hour and a half. And it's not too crazy. You know, for a lot of guys to maintain a physique, anything noteworthy, they're spending hours and hours and hours in the gym and they're eating, gross foods. And so I pride myself, I admit, with this format that I found that works so well for me, working out, hard and intensely, but not necessarily crazy and lots of volume and lots amount of time. And then also that I get to eat foods that I genuinely enjoy. And that's my goal in sharing all this with you. Now, onto our next one. I'd say this is more into bodybuilding. Like if someone was going to be stepping on stage, that's not something I've decided if I ever want to do. But if I ever did decide that I wanted to do a bodybuilding competition, then I would probably do a little bit more volume. I'd add a little bit more exercise into my routine, because their goal is to just kind of focus on, enhancing certain muscle groups. So for example, what a bodybuilder might do is they would do their squats and they would do their deadlifts on their leg day. That's great, that's awesome. But then they would also do leg extensions and they would do leg curls to kind of finish it out. If they wanted to target a specific region of the quad, then they could do that with the leg extensions. If they had a weak point, they might do hip flexor training. That's also something that I'd recommend. And if you have athletic goals, hip flexor training would be really, really good for helping you, run and jump faster. As well as a bodybuilder would probably do lots and lots of different exercises to bias the triceps. So for example, depending on like the angle and if you're doing underhead or push down and what grip you're using and things like that, you might bias different heads of the tricep, because there are 3 heads of the tricep. That's why it's called the tricep. And so a lot of bodybuilders will do isolation exercises, and they do one exercise that really, really hits the lateral head of the tricep. And then they'll do a different one that really, really hits the medial head of the tricep. Whereas, for example, in my routine, I just find any tricep exercise that I enjoy doing, that I can overload well. For me, it's overhead tricep extensions with a dumbbell. And the thing for that about me is you're not gonna be doing that and only working one. I think maybe it probably does bias one if I got into the science of it, but you're not gonna be able to do an exercise like that without using all the triceps. Like, think about it. And so for me and for my goals, that's fine. I can stick with that. If your goals are higher than that, then you should be doing more than that. The same thing applies to biceps. You can do the inside of your bicep or the outside of bicep, depending on like the angle that your arm goes. If you're doing like a preacher curl, or if you're doing drag curls, you can also do hammer curls. You can do reverse grip curls. A bodybuilder might do like all 4 of those. They might do, try and bias the bicep in every way that they can. Whereas for me, I just do regular bicep curls. It's not going to not work the other parts of my bicep, but for me and my goals, it's a lot more simple, especially because my biceps are getting work in my compound movements already. I can just keep it pretty simply like that. So I hope that gives you a pretty decent idea of the structure and the exercises that you should be doing in your workout routine. If you have any more questions, things maybe I didn't clarify well enough, then you can leave it in the comments. You can ask me and I'll be happy to go into a little more detail about that. The next thing I want to talk about is how many reps you should be doing, as well as how long you should be resting in between your sets. Again, this is not a one answer fits all. This depends on what your goals are. So these are general numbers, and there's definitely some overlap in between them, but pretty generally, if you're doing a working set of an exercise in the 3 to 6 rep range, you're going to be focusing primarily on strength, like powerlifting, deep muscle stimulus, a lot of pressure on your nervous system, just getting strong. That is, 3 to 6 reps. And then usually in about 6 to 12, you're gonna be focusing on hypertrophy, which basically just means muscle growth. And so doing that, you're still, you're going heavy and breaking down the muscles and giving it a deep stimulus, but the little bit addition of more volume is what's more likely to get you those micro tears in your muscle fibers that you need to induce muscle protein synthesis so that you can actually grow bigger. And then when you go into 12 to 20 and anything more than that, that is mostly when you're focusing on endurance. And again, there's overlap in that. Like if you work, 15 reps, you might still be, doing good for hypertrophy. I'm not saying that as soon as you cross 12, like your muscles aren't gonna grow or anything like that. As well as if you're working strength, if you're only ever doing like 3 to 6, again, your muscles are gonna grow. It just depends on what's best for each muscle group. And these are general guidelines. And so for, again, the 12 to 20 and anything more than that is gonna be like endurance, athletic training. And so the main difference that I'll highlight there is the difference between aerobic and anaerobic work. And so aerobic, think about it like aerobic exercises, is basically just when your body is using oxygen, and your body is using oxygen to use ATP for fuel. And so if you don't have your oxygen, the exercise is going to go well. That's why usually aerobic exercises, you can draw them out for longer because your body is taking in so much oxygen. Whereas anaerobic is more so you're just using the glucose and the glycogen inside of your muscles and Does that make sense? I hope it does. If it doesn't, call me out on it. I'll try to explain it a little bit better. But basically, if your goal is hypertrophy, if your goal is strength, you want to be doing anaerobic work. You do not want to be doing aerobic work. If your goal is strength and hypertrophy, you want to be using the muscles, not your lungs. Whereas if your goal is endurance, if your goal is athletics and training like that, then you do want to be doing aerobic exercise. You want to be increasing your blood lactate threshold, and you want to be improving your cardiovascular system so that your body can do a better job of getting blood to the muscle cells and lasting you out longer for your performances. Which in that same case will draw us into how long should you be resting. And so a very, very common mistake is that people will rest too short. It was something that I did when I started lifting. Something that a lot of people do is they do not rest long enough in between their sets, in between their exercises. Now our goal, whether your goal is just strength, whether your goal is hypertrophy, you want to be using your muscle fibers. You want to be going heavy and giving a deep, deep stimulus. And if you are not resting long enough, then your body is going to push over into anaerobic work, because that's, kind of drawn on. You're not going to be as strong. You're not going to get as deep a stimulus on your muscle fibers. And so I remember when I was, 15, 16 years old, just lifting weights in my bedroom, I would do a set of bench press, and I had like my watch. I would wait like 60 seconds before doing my next bench press exercise. And guys, that is aerobic work when you're just resting that short. And so, I was limiting the stimulus that I could actually put on my muscles because I was doing aerobic work instead of anaerobic work. Really what you want to be doing is resting for at least 2 minutes. You can rest for 3 or even longer. It's very, very difficult to rest too long. Is it possible? Like, sure, it's possible to rest for too long, but usually you're not going to. And so going back to what I talked about earlier, the way I superset in between my shoulder press and my pull downs on my exercise is because I want that long of a rest period in between my sets. And so when I do my shoulder press and then I go into my vertical pull down, even if I just went back and forth really, really quickly, I would be getting probably 2 minutes of rest in between my sets. And that's, not half bad, but I do take a little bit longer than that. And I'm not wasting time, even though I'm resting, for 3 or 4 minutes sometimes in between my sets. That's why I structure my workout in that way. So basically I had, that scale that I showed you guys of lower reps strength, middle hypertrophy, and upper is endurance. On that same wavelength, your rest time should be higher the earlier on we are in that scale. So if your goal is just strength, especially if you're structuring your whole workout in the 3 to 6 rep range, if you are a power lifter, you might be resting for 5 or 6 minutes in between your sets because you want to give your nervous system a break. You want to give your muscles a chance to repair, flush out any lactic acid. You want to be performing as heavy as you can be on each and every set so you'd rest a lot longer. If your goal is, pushing into hypertrophy, 6 to 12 reps, then you'd rest, 2 to 3 minutes in between your sets. Because again, you want to go heavy, you want to push it, but you don't necessarily need that long to rest in between your sets. And if your goal is endurance and athletic performance, and you're going into 12 to 20 plus, then that is when you would be resting, 30 to 60 seconds. You think of sports teams that do circuits and they run in between these different exercises and they do push-ups and they do burpees and they do sit-ups and their goal is endurance. Their goal, it's great. It's not my goal. I'm not going to work out like that, but their goal is to do that, and that's why they do that. So with that, we have covered the different exercises that you should be doing. We've covered how many reps you should be doing for your goals, and we have covered how long you should be resting. I will go over one last time just the way I structure it. I find myself very middle of the road. It's not quite minimalistic. I have goals a little bit bigger than that, but it's not anything crazy because frankly, I have bigger fish to fry. I have things to do. I'm in school, and so I can't be spending that much time and that much energy just on my lifting. So I structure my exercises. I do a vertical, a horizontal, and a legs. On my vertical day, I do shoulder press and pull downs, and that could be my whole exercise. Those are the 2 most important ones. I superset them in between each other. Then to finish the exercise, I do tricep extensions and shrugs, superset it in between each other. I finish off with forearms. My horizontal day, I do chest press and I do rows as my 2 main super important exercises. Then the next group I do is bicep curls and lateral raises, and I finish off with dips, And on my leg day, I do squats, I do deadlifts, I do calf raises, I do abs. The way that I lift is I start out really, really heavy. My first set is my heaviest after my warm-up. And then I work in the 6 to 8 rep range, so it's close to strength, the bottom end of hypertrophy, and I go really, really heavy as I can for those 6 to 8 reps. Then I drop the weight, I go up a little bit in my reps, I work in 8 to 10. I drop the weight on the next set, I go to 10 to 12, and I drop the weight again, and I work in 12 to 15. So that way I kind of work my muscle fibers across all of the different goals, the different areas. I give a deep, deep muscle stimulus with my strength exercises, and then I'm able to continue in the hypertrophy ranges to just get those micro tears so that my muscles will grow back, as well as I finish off with a little bit of endurance exercises, the higher reps training to increase blood lactate threshold and improve my blood flow to the muscles. In between my exercises, I usually rest 2 to 3 to 4 minutes depending on the exercise. On my first, heavier, super important compound exercises, it's usually going to be more towards 3 or 4. On my other ones, it might be, closer to 2 or 3. But you can just do what feels right for your body. If you need longer than that, that's fine. You should be doing that so that you can get the good muscle stimulus that you want. Again, if I haven't clarified anything, haven't gone into enough detail about any of the topics here, please let me know. You can leave it in the comments. You can DM me on Instagram, and I will be more than happy to try and maybe do another video or just talk with you one-on-one about those questions that you have, those goals are. Nothing I do as a coach right now is paid at all. I just do it because I enjoy it. So don't be scared to message me because you think I'm going to try and sell you a program. That's not what I'm doing right now. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, I hope this has helped. Again, just let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. That's what I'm here for. See you guys. Talk soon.